It's almost the 1st of December. And have you done anything yet to protect your roses for the oncoming winter months? Hi, it's Gary with Successful Gardens. And today I'm going to show you 3 different methods of covering or protecting your roses for the winter months. I live in a zone 4B, so I get kind of cold during the winter months, and I have to take necessary precautions to protect the roses I have growing in my yard. Before we get there, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. And in the comments below, tell me how many roses you have in your garden, and then also what steps do you take to protect your roses during the winter months. Now this rose is a hybrid tea rose called Neil Diamond. But because being a hybrid tea rose, the canes on it can grow 4 to 6 feet tall, and so during the winter months with snow loads you want to be very careful that the snow load doesn't snap or break its canes. And so I'm going to do some maintenance on pruning this rose so that we can protect it that way. And then I will because this rose is in a protected area up against the house, I don't need to necessarily do a heavy burying on the crown, so I will just gather up some of the bark chips and nearby leaves to cover the crown and protect it. Okay, so on this one, because these canes are tall, I'm going to prune this down to about 2 feet in height. Now this also, by doing this, also gives me an opportunity to look at the canes closer to make sure that there's no diseases or damaged canes that has happened during the spring and summer months. And as you can tell, the leaves are still hanging on. It's the 1st of December, and we've had a very mild fall, and so they're just starting to grow dormant now. So that's why I've waited so long to do this. But because of the protected area, I'm just going to gather up some of the nearby bark and cover and protect the crown. Now, by using the bark and the leaves that I have right here, come springtime when I unbury this crown, all I will have to do is then just spread and pull away from this. I can check the condition of the canes. This rose is protected for the winter. All right, in this situation where we're more out in the open, we need to take a little extra precaution in preparing the roses. These particular roses are Floribunda roses, so they grow a little shorter than what hybrid tea roses are, but they're a little more prolific in their blossoming. And so you can see the blossoms are definitely well spent, but yet the green leaves are still hanging on. All right, so with this, I'll just go ahead and there again do some maintenance. I don't have to take as much canes or foliage off of this rose bush, but I still am going to do some maintenance pruning. This will help keep the shape of the rose bush intact too. Now, there's always the controversy of fall pruning versus spring pruning on roses. In milder climates, zone 6 and warmer, you don't need to do any pruning for winter preparation. In fact, you don't really have to do a lot of covering or preparation. But in colder climates, zone 5, zone 4, and zone 3, there you have to take necessary steps to protect your roses, especially your hybrid roses. They're all classified, most of them are classified for zone 5, but being in a zone 4, we still like to take the steps of growing roses and having the beauty that they offer in our garden, but then we also take precautions in protecting them throughout the winter months. Now in some areas you can have lots and lots of snow, so that's why you want to be careful of what snow damage can. But then there are some areas, I don't get a lot of snow in my area, but we have the cold drying winds, and actually I see more damage to roses with the winds than I do actually the cold temperatures. So that's why we're trying to protect the roses at this time. Now on this particular rose, this branch right here grew extra tall, and it has kind of broken down at the base. So this is one that I definitely just want to go ahead and prune all the way down to the bottom. And then I'll just do now with these roses being more out in the open, I'm going to take a little more precaution rather than just pulling in bark around to covering the crown. I still have left the roses between 12 and 18 inches in their height. One thing I have always found in roses, especially in colder climates, is that if you give Mother Nature, say 24 inches of a rose bush to kill, she's going to kill a few inches. But if you prune those roses down to only 6 inches, she's still going to kill some of that top growth, and you run the chance of that whole rose bush dying at that point. So I do a maintenance prune in removing the top growth. There again, it helps protect any winter damage from breakage, but it also will reduce what I have to cover. And on these, there's many of options out there of using tomato cages. You can get the small chicken wire fencing, wrap it around, creating a cage around each of the rose bushes. There's rose collars, and then there's that are usually plastic. They're about 9 to 12 inches, and you just wrap it around the bushes itself, connect them together, and then fill it in with mulch. I'm going to do a mix of something that I have. I'm recycling one of the pots that I have planted. In the spring, I bought a large shrub. I couldn't even tell you what shrub I bought, but I'm taking this pot that I saved, and I cut the bottom out of it. So now with this pot that I have recycled, I'm reusing, I can slip that right over this rose bush. It's acting as a rose collar. There again, the top is fine, but now I can take leaves and put right down inside and protect this. Now, in these pots, I'm using a white reflective pot. A lot of nursery pots are black in nature, and I wouldn't recommend the black pots because they're going to absorb the heat. You might think that that's a good thing for roses during the winter, and it's not. You want the roses to stay dormant in the cold and protect that crown. So by using a white one, I'm ensuring that it's reflecting any sunlight, it's not going to absorb it, it's not going to warm up. But then these leaves would still allow for airflow and protecting the crown and the canes from any damaging winds. The rose cones usually they're usually made out of styrofoam. I've seen some that are made out of recycled or out of pulp pots, but they have a top on it, and it's really hard at that point to use those and get any type of other insulation inside of it. So I always like to have access to the top to where I can add leaves to the top. In fact, I knew one gardener, he had about a dozen roses and he actually used cardboard boxes. Now, it might have been a little ugly sight, but it worked for him. It allowed for him to have the coverage and the protection. He could open the top flaps, put the leaves inside of it, and then fold the flaps back over on itself, and that protected it, because the main importance was protecting it from the winter winds. Now we have these 3 roses covered up. We have the recycled pot to make a rose collar. I took a wired cage, filled it full of leaves to help insulate or protect the leaves. And then I did a box. Now this box, I took the what would be the lower flaps, put a brick on them to hold it down with the weight. And as you can see on the inside, I have filled it full of leaves to cover the crown, and then just added that. So there still can be air circulation through that. Now, with the leaves that I put on there, you want to make sure that they are nice and dry. You don't want to put wet compost or wet leaves on your roses, because especially in a box like that, because that would allow for mold and fungus to be introduced to your roses, and that's the last thing that you want to do while protecting them. Now with these roses, I've taken some dried manure and then spread over the crowns. I'm more concerned about protecting the crown. I'll go through and trim up some of these upper branches come spring, but really that's all I need to do for these roses. They are ready for their winter nap. Now what about the old shrub roses? This cluster or shrub rose right here is the Austrian copper rose, known as Rosa fortii bicolor. It's nice and hardy in the northern climates, and really there's not much that you have to do during the winter months. Just leave it alone. The best time to prune it is after it blooms. It will only bloom once in late spring, early summer. Along with the Austrian copper rose is the Harrison's yellow rose. This is also known as the yellow rose of Texas, or the Oregon Trail yellow rose, with its origin in the 1800s, but nice and hardy rose for the northern climates. This yellow rose blooms once, there again in late spring, early summer months. Absolutely beautiful, semi-double blossom. But for the winter care, there's not much you do for it. You just let it go, and it will survive the snow loads, it will survive the cold, and it will perform for you every year. It's one of those show-stopping roses in the spring. Hopefully you have found this video to be helpful in preparing your roses for winter. When you hit that subscribe button and also that like button, tell me, how many roses do you have in your garden? And do you use any of these methods in winterizing or preparing your roses for winter? Until next time, thanks for watching. This is Gary with Successful Gardens, and remember, let's get growing.